All right.
Okay, good evening. I would like to call to order this subcommittee meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission for the purpose of review and discussion of proposed amendments to the zoning regulations. It is Thursday, September 12th, 7 p.m., and we are on Zoom. I will now take a roll call of members. Mr. Hill,
You're on mute, Alvin.
Alvin Hill, present.
Mr. Knoyer,
Ryan Knoyer, present.
Mr. Lanky,
John B. Lanky, present.
Ms. Salsi,
Jane Salsi, present.
Mr. Santos,
Ryan Santos, present.
and I, Joseph Purdy Brown, am present. Item 2, continue review and discussion of proposed amendments to the zoning regulations. So I will turn it over to Tira to share her screen and to.
Yeah, just give me a second, Joe, because I just got a stupid update notification on my laptop. I just have to send it away.
Of course.
Your timing was impeccable, but that was not. Okay. Share screen. You guys all have that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I
Alrighty.
do.
Let me move this here. Okay. So picking up where we left off, section 275-14.5, solar energy use via photovoltaic PV array systems. Just reminding everybody that this particular set of recommendations was largely, not largely, was entirely Alvin's set of suggestions. I have to say up front, I read through them and I'm not totally sure where his head was at. So I'm just going to read through them in sections. And then Alvin, if you want to share where your head was at, then the commission can discuss. So A, intent. Thompson has adopted the following zoning regulations to encourage the efficient and effective installation of solar photovoltaic PV systems. The intent of these regulations is to promote the safe, productive placement and installation of current solar energy systems. Zoning solar energy is a renewable energy resource that may establish a valuable economic resource. It is the further purpose of these regulations to, 1, encourage the use of sunlight's renewable energy resources. 2, promote efficient and sustainable building design and building practices. 3, to enhance the reliability and resiliency of the local power grid, and that may make more efficient use of the local electric distribution infrastructure. 4, reduce barriers to the installation of renewable energy systems as an accessory use by private homeowners, small and large businesses. I think there should be a which there, which are also encouraged to weigh the advantages of solar power systems. 5, establish clear standards for the installation of small residential ground-mounted systems, medium or large-scale PV systems for commercial or municipal use. And 6, reduce unintended impacts on agricultural lands and open space resulting from the installation of medium to large-scale solar energy systems. So I'm going to pause there. And this section has been hard for me to wrap my head around because I think it's just an expansion of what we have, but I haven't really been able to look at them effectively side by side. Go ahead, Alvin.
Yep, all those 6, I reduced it to 4.
Okay, so which ones?
Shall I read them?
Which ones did you remove?
What?
When you say you reduced it to 4, which
Correct.
of those 6 are the 2 that you removed?
All right, 2 to, well, actually from 2 on. I'll read 2. You've got promote efficient, sustainable design. Nah, I didn't have that in there. Number 2 for me, reduce barriers to the installation of renewable energy systems as an accessory use by private homeowners. Small and large businesses are also encouraged to weigh the advantage of solar energy power systems. 3, establish clear standards for the installation of small residential ground-mounted systems, medium or large-scale PV systems for commercial or multiple use. And 5, reduce unintended impacts on agricultural lands and open space resulting from the installation of medium to large-scale solar energy systems. That's all I've written. All this other stuff, I just
Okay, just for the good of the order, Ray has entered. Welcome, Ray. I hope you're feeling better. So Alvin just read his revisions, which I think eliminated these two, right? These ones that I've highlighted.
No, number 1 is okay. I've
Okay.
encouraged our encouragement in the use of sunlight's renewable energy resources.
Okay, so it was 2 and 3 that you took out. All right.
Yeah, I've only got 4, 2 to 4. You've
Okay.
got 2 to 6.
All right. Okay, Santos, I see your hand up.
Sorry for the dumb question, but where in the regulation are we putting this? Can you give me the number, just so I have a clear
Yeah,
understanding?
the existing format, since we went online, went to code online, is section 275, which is the zoning regulations, and then chapter or subsection 14.5, which is in, I believe, the section on regulated uses, I think is how they phrase it. So we have had, since we did the update, an entire section on installation of solar. And these suggested edits are the ones that Alvin sent me, I mean, at this point, a few months ago, and we've been taking our process and we're now getting to it. So that's where we are. And you can see in this, Cindy has already dropped some comments, which I incorporated sort of as she incorporated in her memo back to me. She is recommending to strike this first sentence in the intent. Thompson has adopted the following zoning regulations to encourage the efficient and effective installation of solar photovoltaic, solar photovoltaic PV systems. I believe sentences, the second and third sentences here are what is already in there. I think this one that she's recommending we not include would have been an addition.
Which one is that?
So if you're looking at the
The
screen,
intent of these regulations, she wants to eliminate that?
Cindy's suggestion is to eliminate this sentence that I'm highlighting
Oh, okay.
based on the rationale that it is not the responsibility of zoning to encourage any activity, only to regulate an activity. I'm not totally sure that I agree with that comment, but I am neutral as to whether this sentence is included, and if it doesn't add to the meaning, then that's fine.
Kira,
Yes,
I'm
Jane.
sorry. I'm sorry. It's that first sentence. Thompson has adopted the following zoning regulations. That's what Cindy wants, is in suggesting.
Is suggesting not to add. I believe so, and she's in the room.
Yeah, we
so she
don't,
can
we
confirm.
don't need that. Where there's, people, what the regulations are, so it's redundant. We don't need it.
Fine with me either way.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's necessary either. It's just more words that people have to read.
Does anybody have any other thoughts on this section on intent before we go to the next section in the suggested updates for solar?
Well, I have a little difference on the intent on that
Okay,
second.
go ahead.
Okay, it's very close. The intent of these regulations is to promote the safe, productive placement and installation of the current solar energy technology. Solar energy is a renewable energy resource that may establish a valuable commercial, social-minded return. It is the further purpose of these regulations to and then I've listed the four.
Say that second sentence again, starting from solar energy is a renewable.
Solar energy is a renewable energy resource that may establish a valuable economic, social-minded return.
I'm just adding this so that everybody can read it and discuss.
Yep.
Thoughts, folks?
I don't understand the social minded. Why can't it just be valuable economic return?
Yeah, I mean, do we actually have to put the intent in?
The format of the regulations is generally to include intent in front of most, if not all, sections. I don't believe we actually have one quite in all sections. It does reinforce within the document why certain language may be chosen or certain standards may be chosen. So it is more or less a standard way that these are put together.
In this iteration, I do like the emphasis on placement of energy systems. That does feel more in line with the work of this commission.
And B, you were saying strike social minded, but just leave valuable economic return, yes?
Yeah.
Okay, I guess I'm just not we've got the intent. I think the intent of these regulations is to promote the safe, productive placement and installation of current solar energy systems. Period. I don't think we need anything else. That's the intent. You don't have to put the definition in there that solar is a renewable energy resource. We just need to put the intent. The intent of these regulations is to promote the safe, productive placement and installation of current solar energy systems. To me, that's all we need.
And just as a point of clarity, I think Alvin wanted the word systems to be replaced with the word technologies.
That works too.
I think you are correct, B.
Yeah, I think that even makes it better. The intent of these regulations is to promote the safe, productive placement and installation of the current solar energy technologies. That says it right there.
I can't believe I'm about to say this, but I actually agree with Jane.
Oh my God, I'm putting this one on the calendar.
Or James already recorded.
Yeah. I do think that the simplicity of the first sentence and then the final sentence that is the further purpose too, it has a little more clarity.
I'll go back to what I said. That sentence, the intent of these regulations, blah, 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 that's pretty much all that we need. We don't need to put in there, it's a renewable energy resource that may establish, it's just, it's, for me, in regulations, you're just putting in the facts, ma'am.
I think that gets a little bit to some of Cindy's points too in her comments. So I'm gonna.
Yeah, I'm good with that as well.
I wouldn't disagree with that.
Okay. And then a couple of these are what it already is. So again, because I'm not looking at them side by side. I think these ones that we've eliminated more or less get us back to where we have been. Okay. All right. So then
Go back to your number 4. That's good. See, that would be my number 2.
Well, it is. It's just because there were the 2 and 3 there that now have been struck. It hasn't renumbered itself. That's all. So
I
that
would-
would be 1, 2, 3, 4.
See, I would put a period at private, like I've private homeowners, period. Then small and large businesses are also encouraged to weigh the advantages of solar energy power technology or systems.
I see what you're saying.
may-
No,
But
we
I think
hardly-
that okay, so I see where you are. That's why I thought there was a witch there. So I think the way it is currently phrased, and if anybody is looking at the online code side by side, they can confirm. I think the way it is currently phrased in the regulations is just that first sentence. Reduce barriers to the installation of renewable systems as an accessory use by private homeowners, small and large businesses. So Alvin's addition there would be to break this into 2 sentences, which I will do just for the sake of
Correct.
visual.
Yep.
But now I think we're back to where Cindy was getting sort of uncomfortable with the language, which is that it's this encouragement language as opposed to just, we are reducing barriers for all 3 of these types of property owners, private homeowners, small and large businesses.
And I agree with that with Cindy. We don't need all the extra words.
I have no problem with that.
Okay, so I'm just
Yeah.
I'm gonna undo that.
Yeah,
Edit.
just for the record, Alvin, number 1 already encourages everybody to take advantage regardless if it's private,
Right.
small business.
Yep, good point. So homeowners, period, then just strike the rest of it.
No, I think we want to keep the rest of it because we do, we
Right, exactly.
regulate parcels for all property owners, whether they're residential or non-residential.
Right, private
So-
ownership, small and large businesses, period.
Yeah. Okay. All right, we good here? Should we move on? Anybody have any other commentary on this portion?
Let's see, 3, look back to,
77703.
Where were you, Alvin?
okay, so on your number 5, I've got number 3.
Mhm.
Establish clear standards for the installation of small residential ground-mounted system, comma, medium or large scale PV systems for commercial or municipal use,
Mhm.
period. Yep,
Yeah,
then
well,
again-
that's only a semicolon because we're in a list, and then the last
right.
one is
Then
the
right.
last. Yeah,
reducing
I-
negative impacts on agricultural lands, open space resulting from the installation of medium and large scale solar energy, either again, technology or systems.
yeah, okay. Anybody else? We good? Moving on. Okay, and again, if somebody is looking at what we currently have online, because I can only screen share one at a time, I can't show a split screen.
Yeah, I'm on it
Uh,
right now, Tira.
Thank you, Joe. So would you do me a favor and since I'm only looking at the suggested edits, read what is currently there for the purpose under section E, large scale installation special considerations?
Yes, just one second, please. Section E.
And for the sake of the commissioners who were not there when we adopted these, this is actually the most novel section. And when I wrote it and the commission adopted it, it was actually, this was before Kais was a commissioner. It was very specifically in response to some concerns she raised to me about what we know to be sort of a flogging horse of hers, the loss of agricultural lands to solar installations. You really can't prohibit the installation of solar power, solar arrays, whatever, on privately held agricultural soils. that would constitute a taking. But you certainly can put guidelines. So this was where we landed, which is actually pretty aggressive in terms of saying, yeah, you can locate your arrays on these types of lands, but only in these proportions and only under these conditions. So I just wanted people to understand that, because it is not, this is much more protective than the average language you will see on this stuff, just so you know. And now, Mr. Chairman, if you would be so kind.
Certainly. So E, large-scale installations, special considerations, purpose. The purpose of this subsection is to encourage the development of renewable energy resources while preserving core forest, prime farmlands, and other open spaces.
Read it for me one more time.
The purpose of this subsection is to encourage the development of renewable energy resources while preserving core forest, prime farmlands, and other open spaces.
And if I'm reading Alvin's suggestions correctly, he would recommend striking it as written and replace it with the simple sentence. The purpose of this subsection is to preserve core forest, prime farmlands, and other open spaces. Which is a shorter version of what is already adopted, but it doesn't refer to the fact that it is related to solar installations. So I'm going to say that I think as it's currently in the regulations is clearer. That doesn't mean it couldn't use more edits.
It's better to have it the way it's written, because we're trying to avoid that scenario from happening. No?
And when you say as written, you mean as written in the current regulations?
On the sheet of paper that we're editing currently on number
In
6.
the draft. Okay, I see what, okay. I just want to be sure when you say as written, it could be written in a couple of different places.
Specifically referring to large scale installations. A good example for anybody that was near Anya could be considered, farmland, I guess, to some extent, right? And there's a solar project there. There's another one on Ballard Road. So there are already a few in town. I assume that those were in before any regulations were in, but I don't know the timing of them.
They certainly were installed long before I came around. So as to what regulatory system they were installed under. Now, it should also be made clear, and I think most of you guys know this, the commission fundamentally has no authority over anything larger than 1 megawatt. But the regulations that we've adopted certainly would apply to anything large scale that goes up to 1 megawatt, and do provide sort of a sense of the community's preferences to anybody proposing the really large ones. Santos, I see your hand up.
I just don't think it's substantial enough to make any changes to it. I don't think there's anything wrong the way it's written. That's all. In the current regulation. Thank you.
Yeah, I figured that's what you meant. I'm going to put a couple of sidebar comments here so I can refer back to them.
And while you're doing that, Tira, I would tend to agree with Brian on this, that I think much like we do with the telecommunication stuff that also we have no authority over, right? Our intention was to put in writing, what as you said, the preferences of this community, of this commission, were as those entities which do have authority where we don't, that they would see in writing in our regulations. And so I think that's why I would keep it as written in the current draft.
That's a great point, Joseph. And from the training in New Haven that we were just at, one of the key themes was discussing ways to make things in the regulations coinciding with the views of the town and the commission. So being able to kind of shape things was literally one of the themes that they were harping on at the
Yeah,
meeting.
thanks. Sorry, I just caught myself misspeak. I said in the draft, I mean as currently. I would keep it as the current regulations that exist. I think I messed that up earlier, Tara.
It's okay. I'm going to stop share for 1 second. Talk amongst yourselves on the topic. What I'm going to do, because I really do want to see these side by side, because I understand why Ryan likes what Alvin has better. And I understand and tend to agree that the current construction has better clarity as regulation. But again, I don't assume that means that it can't be improved as it is. So I want to just go copy and paste it, but I have to stop sharing. So discuss the topic while I do that, or whatever topic you like.
I guess the question is, does anyone disagree, or does anyone think that there should be large-scale solar systems on farmland in Thompson? Is there opposition to that on the commission, I guess? Is a question.
Yeah.
So
It's a great
I
question.
understand where you're going with the question, Ryan, but the part of the point is you can't really fully prevent it because it is privately owned land to which people have the right to monetize. And actually, I think Blackie was one of the ones sort of on that side saying, look, you can't just tell people they can't do it, period.
Which it doesn't in the current wording on the.
Correct.
Kira,
Yes, Alvin.
on prime land, especially large acreage, we could certainly require that the height of the panels or the type of solar system on large pieces of land, we could certainly determine that as a regulation.
I'm against determining what somebody can do on their own land, especially when it comes to this.
No,
That's
I'm
their
not-
property.
Jane, I'm talking about the height of the panel.
The height, yeah, I get what you're saying. I mean, it's their property, Alvin. I am not for on any level putting any more restrictions on people, what they can do on their own land. There's enough restrictions now. So I think the way it's written now, it's good.
Okay, I just did the cut paste, so I'm going to go back to share screen. Hang on 1 second.
Alvin, just to comment on that height limitation thing. As you know, technology is always changing with these type of panels. So I think it'd be, I think it'd be, if we were gonna like name something, I think it'd be hard to like keep up with that. Right.
Yeah.
And I know you're just saying a height limitation, but I feel like that's a constant update with the development of technology.
So I think I can change one word the way it is currently written that will get more to the protective, because right now we are saying that we encourage the development of renewable energy sources while preserving. But I think what we need to do is change encourage to allow, right? We do allow this, but we also are motivated to preserve these three important land types: core forest, prime farmlands, and other open spaces.
The
How do
allow
you-
is the allow is better. The word allow is better.
Highlight this so that I remember that that's the change.
And I'll agree with you on that one, Tara. Put that one in the books.
Huh. How do the rest of you feel about that?
No, I agree.
Yes, yeah.
Does that make you more comfortable, Ryan?
Could I see the change? I think my video was out for a second. I didn't hear the last 20 seconds or so.
Okay, no problem. So as currently in the regulations, so I'm going to read you what's currently in the regulations and then the one word change that I just made here. So we're not going to read the shorter piece of Alvin's. As currently written, the purpose of this subsection is to encourage the development of renewable energy resources while preserving core forest, prime farmlands, and other open spaces. The one word I just changed, now it reads, the purpose of this subsection is to allow the development of renewable energy resources while preserving core forest, prime farmlands, and other open spaces.
I'd almost put in parentheses, while preserving, parenthesize, hopefully the state government will put regulations on what is a co-forest and what is prime farmland and what
Yeah,
is-
those things are defined. Core forest has a definition, so does prime farmland. Those are defined by state statute. And those definitions are in our section on solar.
Well, let's
Yeah,
hope.
I think it's good the way it is. Again, we don't, if it's in there already, so we don't need to define it. So I think the simpler, the better, so that it doesn't raise up any more questions. Well, what's this? What's that? I think this is good the way it is.
I just want to look at this note of Cindy's. In amendments on chart table. Okay, this is just a flip around of language. I'm just going to highlight this so I don't forget it. That's a simple one.
To be fair, and I guess clear to it, renewable energy does not only refer to solar. It can refer to the digester, for instance, right?
That is true. And
The broad
actually,
definition of renewable energy.
since this section only deals with solar, I believe we actually therefore need to change this to read. Good catch, Ryan. To allow the development of.
Solar. Or solar technology. Because that could be,
Development of solar,
that's a
and I
wider
think
definition.
I think systems is actually the correct word here, because we're not. The landowner isn't developing the technology. The landowner is developing a system. The
Yeah.
technology is developed outside by entities, engineers, and then property owners develop their land by adding the systems. So yeah, I think that's a good catch, Ryan. So I'm gonna highlight this because that was also a change. So I know what my changes are when I look at them. Okay.
Tara,
Who is that? Oh, is that Ray?
yeah, hey, I'm backing out of this meeting. I'm not feeling too good here, so
Yeah,
I ain't
you
doing
don't
nothing just
sound
sitting
good, Ray. Take
No.
it easy.
Hope you
Feel
feel
better
better, Ray.
soon.
talk to you guys later.
Okay.
take care.
Poor guy. I was actually surprised he dialed in. I knew he wasn't feeling well. Okay, so, and again, I'm not looking at these side by side. So Alvin, these are new definitions that you proposed within the section. Is that correct?
That's correct, all 6. Yep.
Okay, so let's look at these guys and see. What is this? I don't know what this is. Number 1, and so these are new definitions which would go into the definition section, but we'll look at them here. Solar energy system, a device, array of devices. Along with structural design features, the purpose of which is to provide for the generation and or storage of electricity from sunlight and the collection for battery storage, distribution of solar energy for space heating and cooling, daylight for interior lighting or the heater of water. To solar I don't know why I can't say that. Solar photovoltaic system.
Photovoltaic, correct.
Yeah, it's like I've got a mental block on the word. Solar photovoltaic system, a solar energy system that converts the sunlight energy rays, sunlight ray. I think raise is redundant. A solar energy system that converts the sunlight energy directly into electricity, the primary components of which are solar panels, roof or ground mounted devices, direct current inverters and wiring. 3, roof-mounted solar energy system, a solar photovoltaic system mounted on a rack that is ballasted on or is attached to the roof of a building or structure. Roof-mounted systems
That are in the
are,
section.
yeah, that is roof-mounted systems are an accessory use to a residential home. And I think we need to have a may, if we're going to use these definitions, or maybe primary use for a business. Ground-mounted solar energy system accessory use, a solar photovoltaic system mounted on a rack or pole mount.
Mounted. Pole mounted. Yep.
Okay. That is ballasted on or is attached to the ground and the system as an accessory to, that would have to be primary use then.
Right. That's better.
Ground-mounted solar energy system primary use, a solar photovoltaic system mounted on a rack or pole that is ballasted on or is attached to the ground and is the primary land use for the parcel or parcels on which it is located. Primary use systems are permitted through a discretionary special permit process. And then 6 of Alvin's suggestions, grid-connected solar energy systems. A solar photovoltaic system that is connected to an electrical circuit served by an electric utility company, complying with the interconnections requirements of said company. There are 2 types of local utility pole or wire connections, a Y system and a delta system. A Y system will have 2 overhead power conductors with a ground wire connection and will not be allowed to transfer solar energy production to its power delivery system. A delta system will have 3 overhead power conductors and a 4th ground conductor wire. The grid-connected solar photovoltaic powered energy is thus acceptable to its electric utility. And Cindy appears to have a lot of questions about the necessity of including these definitions. Cindy, are you there? You want to?
Yeah, I haven't looked at this for a long time. So, but my comment is, why? Why would you want to get into such detail when that is actually the contractor's job to tell the homeowner? I'm not finished. To tell the homeowner what kind of, or suggest to the homeowner what kind of solar system they want. I mean, I don't get it. What's the point of it?
So in fairness to Alvin, I don't think he's making any specific suggestions here. I think he's suggesting that these are definitions of types of systems. But that does, yeah, go ahead, Alvin.
You know, part of any regulation is also to enlighten the commissioners. So if we have a ground-mounted, accessory use system, they may not be aware of what type of, what are we talking about? At least here, the homeowner, the commissioner, the contractor will understand what's on the application. We can't leave everything up to the engineer. We got to be able to educate the commissioners and the homeowner.
Okay,
And again, Joe, would you just tell me, do we have any in the section, since I, again, can't look at the split screen, do we incorporate any of these definitions in the, or any similar definitions in the existing text?
Yeah, give me just 1 second, please.
And then I think Cindy was trying to say something too.
again, And I guess I just speak from recent experience after sitting down with two solar companies, they explained to me systems. So what's the point? I don't get it. I mean, why do we have to know what system? I mean, I just don't get it, but whatever you guys decide, if you think it's necessary, I guess it's necessary.
Brian, I see your hand up.
I mean, I don't mind definition for an educational purpose, like Alvin suggested for people. But I do agree with Cindy on number 5. The second sentence, the primary use of systems, that's not educating anyone. That's actually telling someone that it's going to be a special permit. So I think that sentence could be eliminated. It's not providing any further definition.
Right, because we already have it in the existing
Yep.
table of uses, yeah.
So,
That's a good point.
oh, sorry, I do not see 4, 5, 6, 3. We do have a definition for solar photovoltaic system. We do not for solar energy system.
So the only one that's in the current regulations is this one, number 2?
Correct.
And that's in the section or in the definitions?
It's in definitions.
Okay.
And that's why I added all these additional ones. Again, to keep us informed.
Can I say something, Tara?
Yes, please.
Okay, what I'm seeing is, and I've said it from day one, the simpler the better. There's a lot of things in here that we don't need. Most people that are going to put a solar system in have contacted a solar company. All of that can be explained to them. Our regulations are supposed to be just that. We don't have to expand or go farther. I agree with Cindy, and I also agree with what Brian said. A lot of this is not necessary. They're going to deal with the solar company. It's not like they're going to go build one from scratch. So all of this a lot of this wording is not necessary, in my opinion.
So
Yeah, I'll tell you what my concern is about the extended definitions. And, there's 2 schools of thought about this, right? Our prior wetlands agent, Marla, loved lots of definitions, right? That every term would be as defined as possible for legal clarity moving forward. And that is a legitimate point of view. In the case of defining technologies, I think that there is a potential to run into trouble as the technologies themselves change and evolve. So if we are defining a set of parameters on what any one of these ground mounts or roof mounts looks like, right? Because that's, we're providing essentially almost a visual context for people reading that could change. And as a point of example, you guys approved a few months ago that 1 acre solar, potential solar project behind Quinn's Shirt Shop, which didn't look like anything that's being described here, is fundamentally ground mounted, but it isn't even really mounted. They were big ballasted boxes that sit on the ground unattached, right?
You're absolutely right, Tara. And go back to what Brian said, technology changes almost weekly. And if we put in this strictness of what is, it's going to change through the technology. All you have to do is look ahead 5 years and it's going to be changed again. So the simplification is the best way to go without all the extras in there, because it's, in my opinion, not necessary.
I tend to agree with what is seemingly the consensus, but I do thank Alvin for this work because it is a good reference for us.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I do appreciate what Al. Yeah,
it was nice of him to put that together.
Yeah, and we should actually give Alvin more shout outs for all of the extra work that he does in his free time, some of which has been incredibly valuable. But I do think we seem to be leaning towards this consensus of not going out of our way to define the details of systems that could be obsolete by the time we go to print. Santos, I see your hand up.
You just scroll up to, did you say number 1 was already in our regs?
Number 2 appears to be the one that's already, or some
not-
variant of it is already in there.
I thought somebody said that solar energy system was in there too.
No, Tira's right. Solar photovoltaic it's a different definition, but that's the only one of those 6 that is currently.
So, okay, so this isn't even the definition that's there. Would you read that to us, Joe?
I would.
Thank you, sir.
Solar photovoltaic system, a power system designed to capture radiant solar power by means of photovoltaics, converting it to usable electrical current, and arrangement of several components that may include storage or energy containment, providing electricity for individual agricultural, industrial, or governmental use.
By the way, I'm pretty sure, Alvin, you wrote that definition too.
I would
Just
put
so you
money
know.
on
I think that was directly your contribution the last time we looked at this.
So I'm trying to get it up in the background. Do we want to delete the last 3 like words that were, one was agricultural? I just feel like it was limiting in some way or not.
You mean in the
robust.
current definition
Yeah,
in the
the one
book?
that Joe just read. Yeah, I feel like maybe we should end a period. I'm
All
trying
right,
to
so-
find it.
But,
So give me another second to go copy paste that and I'll be back.
But,
So
Brian,
you
why
may,
don't we just stick with the one that she's got that's highlighted, because that covers it all. Right there, just that one that one what's it, number 2 in here? That seems to cover it all. You can't get any better than that.
Yeah, just I don't know if I'm agreeing or disagreeing. I actually like the one that was just read by Joe.
all right, give me a second to go copy paste it. I'm gonna stop share. I'll be back.
Well, that's the one I was talking about, more or less, because we can't really tell people what they want. You know, they're pushing solar out here to people to put solar on their house, whatever. I've got people knocking on my door at least once a week. I'm not interested in putting solar on my house or around here, but you know, if somebody wants to put up a monopole with a solar panel on it that can extend 30 feet in the air, that's up to them. They want to spend $100,000. That's up to them. We can't tell people what they can spend or what. It's just if they want to go solar, okay, let's, have it in our regs. But I think that one there covers it all.
Brian.
Yeah, this is just the definition, JB.
Yeah. Brian, I think while Tira is cutting pasting, I think what you're going to see is ending it after containment does what you want it to do. It does a pretty good job of being inclusive, individual, agricultural, industrial, or governmental use. But I think to a point that's been raised several times tonight, it doesn't add much to the definition and could be construed as exclusive of some use, right?
So you're saying, Joe, to take
Right
where I'm highlighted?
yeah.
Okay, let's do that and see how it
Full
reads. A power system designed to capture radiant solar power by means of photovoltaics, converting it to usable electrical current and arrangement of several components that may include storage or energy containment.
Yeah, I don't mind that.
Yep, that was the original back when we first talked about. Going back probably 3 years, I know the commission at that time asked me to write regulations on solar. And I looked at all the commissioners, I stood up and I said, yes, with one condition. Of course, they looked at me and say, who the hell are you to give us a commission? Mindset. What is the mindset here with solar? It's 1916. We've seen our first, you imagine yourself as 50 years old. Your entire life has been on horseback or horse and carriage, and you've seen your first Ford B. Not an A, not a T, or a V8. That's where we are today in 2024 with photovoltaic. It's very, very early. We got a long way to go before we get to a VA.
I'll get to see it. Well, you were right. You're right, Alvin. The technology has gotten better in the last, 15, 20 years on solar panels. What used to be 4x8, now they can put 4 of them in the same space and stuff like that. So now the production has increased.
Yep.
But the thing, and in 5 years now, it'll be probably 6 panels. So that's why a lot of these solar arrays that you have seen that are 5 megs and plus, and they're putting out X amount, they're gonna be doubling or tripling in the next 5 to 10 years. Brian should know about it. He deals with that all the time. The technology.
Some of the new technology today is just incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, we're roughly between 14 and 16% efficiency.
Yeah.
And that's only from September to May. Once you get into the summer months, that efficiency goes right into the toilet.
So based on what seems to be the consensus, I've streamlined the existing definition, added it back into here to the draft, and eliminated those others. I believe that's where we landed. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so now there is a little more, and I think we're getting into the same kind of thing. And I understand, again, Alvin's sort of desire to educate within the regulations. But just right off the bat, the very first sentence of this, as of year 2024, there are 3 types of solar PV panels to consider. We're already essentially saying that we're going to be obsolete almost as soon as we go to publication on this. So I'm gonna say that without reading through all of these, based on what we've discussed thus far tonight, that this is not stuff that this isn't regulatory language. This is definitive language that is, like, if we wanted to someday add an appendix about solar technologies, maybe.
I agree.
But in a publication which is intended to, to regulate, right? To say this is how you do something, that this is kind of, it's begging to be obsolete as soon as we publish it.
Yeah, again, Alvin, thanks for the information, but I tend to agree. I think it'll be obsolete like soon after it's published. So
I agree.
I don't think it's good for the regulation right now.
I think, Alvin, you did a very good job with it, but it's just, like, it changes every day.
Yep. Well, part of my motivation behind that is
I'd agree too,
not the
but we
public,
should keep it
it's
for
us.
references because we may need this in the future.
zoning, the commissioners, that's what this is all about.
Well, the best thing to do is, we'll make you a professor. You get all this, and we'll all sit down and you can teach us. Keep us up to date. That's the best way to keep any commissioner abreast of the changes. I mean, it's like,
That's true. Matter of fact, I got some printouts this coming month. At the end, I'm going to be handing out more information on solar.
but that's the way. And Alvin, I agree with that. I like your enthusiasm. That's the only way you're going to educate commissioners. That's like going to these conferences and everything where you learn different things. I've learned a lot in the last 4 or 5 years starting to go to these, since the state mandated that we had to get X amount of hours per term or whatever. And it's been very helpful. But I don't think you'll ever see any type of conference or class or whatever on solar array. That you got to leave that to the people that, they're trying to sell it to the average Joe. But it'd be nice to educate them.
Well, on as the year 2024, I'm going to be giving this handout to our assessor because, even us as commissioners, what if somebody came in and was only none of us were aware of it. we all think it's just thin panels. Yet he's putting up a monocrystal panel. Now you're talking, 40 years of efficiency. What happens when our regulations change over the next 40 years? I mean, there are a lot of questions. Lots of questions.
Well, what was the old saying? They were lucky if they last 15 to 20. Now you got them going up to 40 years. Yes.
Well, when we get up between 40 and 45 efficiency, then I'll think about myself buying solar, but I won't be around to purchase it, quite honestly.
Are we okay to move on now, guys?
Yep.
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
So we are not in a section where we have any suggested language per se. This is in response to a general comment from Mike Krogel. The section in question is 275, chapter 15, or subsection 15.5 parking standards. So Mike's comment was, I am unable to locate regulations for minimum parking spaces for, and he phrased this as commercial residential properties. And there was a little back and forth there. I was not initially sure if he meant commercial residential, meaning multifamily, or commercial and residentials. He did clarify that, that he was referring to multifamily residences. What I can tell you from, my extensive reading on the topics and where the trends and the best practices currently are, is that parking minimums are generally frowned upon as bad zoning practice because you can lock property owners into patterns that might not make sense for them. Generally, if you have either a residential, multifamily residential, which I think is what Mike means by commercial residential, or business use, you are going to plan for your anticipated parking need. And that's it. And that other impositions are often arbitrary. They've sometimes been used to limit people's abilities to put in certain types of uses in the past, which is one of the reasons they're so frowned on now. Cindy also is interested in, oh, looks like Ryan dropped out and came back in. Cindy also would be comfortable, or more comfortable, I think, articulating some parking standards for multifamilies according to her commentary. So that is a topic which you may discuss. And to be clear, I do not have specific language on what that would be.
Is that 15.5 we're talking about?
Yeah, we would be generally in section 15.5.
Yeah, I'm looking at the original.
And again, if we're looking at recent examples, St. Joseph's School, there was some back and forth about how much parking, right? And people were questioning, both members of the public and members of the commission, the amount of parking. But that individual, applicant, is an experienced developer of multifamily housing, and I would submit that his experience in that is greater than any of ours as to what the needs is. I mean, he's got dozens and dozens of these types of properties all over New England, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut. For the commission to impose another standard would be sort of substituting for that expertise.
So where are we disagreeing? Dimensions?
No, we're in Mike's general comments here. He was looking for regulations describing minimum numbers of parking spaces, specifically in his case to multifamily properties. And then Cindy expanded it to say, you know, maybe multifamilies, restaurants, and event venues.
Well, wouldn't the dimension itself determine the most or least?
The dimensions is a separate issue. Unless I'm misunderstanding you.
Well, automotive, well, I'm looking at 275-15-5 B, dimensions and number of parking spaces.
Mhm.
Any automobile parking space provided shall be no less than 9 foot by 18 in dimension. I mean, that would limit yourself one way, that, as long as that they follow that dimension. I mean, who cares how many they have?
Well, I think that's the crux of the argument, Alvin, is some people do care how many they have and some people do not. So the question is, what is the feeling of the commission on this? And my feeling is, based on current best practices, that we should not be dictating an arbitrary number of parking spaces to somebody who is describing what they think they need. Go ahead, B.
In the background, I was just doing some random searches of other multifamily parking limitations, and I could not find a single one that limited the amount of parking. And I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you know, when we evaluate any parking area, I think we kind of just use, forgive me for using this word, common sense. And if we feel like there's something that doesn't look quite right, that's why we're allowed to put conditions on certain things, right? So
Right.
I feel like leaving it a little open is beneficial to the commission.
Tara, Alvin just said, you said the space that we have now in the regs is 9 by 18.
Correct.
It is, but that's actually a separate topic that we have a little language suggestion from Cindy, which is fine, which is, you know, referring to width and length. That's the only reason that's even included in there.
Well,
What we have run into, and Brian, to your point, I don't think that what we have run into is this commission or any commission that I'm aware of saying that places are including too much parking. It's the opposite, that commissions sometimes will say, or the public will suggest, right? Laypersons in the public will say, oh, that development doesn't have enough parking. But that is substituting that lay knowledge for the developer's knowledge. And to Cindy's comment, which expands that idea to restaurants and event venues, there are cases, and I could, you know, I could send to you guys if you want them, sort of studies of or reports on, you know, places that want to infill into small spaces. So let me try to think of one that would give you a good visual to compare. So you know where Milltown Grill is now. Next to Milltown Grill is another commercial space. So let's say that another different type of restaurant, coffee shop, whatever, wanted to co-locate in that space. If you're dictating minimum parking spaces by use, then you've shut out a new place going into there because the existing parking serves another use, right? So this is how unintended consequences by dictating minimums can lock out efficient uses of spaces. I don't know if I'm describing that well. I am aware of these sort of case studies and I could send them to you to look at. But that's sort of why the planning best practices that now sort of people look at really lean away from, don't tell people how many parking spaces they have to have. They'll tell you how many they want or think they need.
Well,
Is that clear?
yeah, you got that. Yes, I like that, but you pretty much hit the nail on the head, because at Milltown, the Milltown grill there or whatever, you look in the back there where the parking spaces in the back, wherever who owns the property, owns the buildings and everything, he's got it designated to how many parking spaces can be for this one or that one or that or the other one. So it's really up to the owner of the property, or as long as the parking spaces are wide enough for to get a vehicle in. Like my truck, when I park my truck and open the door, it's going to be close to 10 feet wide, 8.5 to 9 feet. And when you open the door on the other side, guess what? It's wider. But see, should be up to the individual owner of the property of that establishment. That's how I look. If we got 9 by 18, I think that's sufficient. But if Brian feels it's a little bit different because he deals with that more than anything, I would appreciate his comments, 2 cents and everything on it. That's how I feel about it. I don't think we should dictate how many they can have and how many they cannot have. It's, if the owner wants to put in 20 and he doesn't have the room, that's his problem. We're getting crazy.
Yeah, the only thing I've really found online here is it dictates 2% of the parking spaces, whatever quantity that is decided upon by either the owner or somebody else. 2% of them have to be ADA spaces.
Right.
I mean,
Well,
I did find a whole outline in Greenwich, but it's Greenwich. So.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't think we can hold ourselves quite to the
I
standards
don't-
of Greenwich.
You want to talk about the ultimate in apples and oranges, but yeah.
I was gonna use that example, but it's probably not a good one. But there's a lot of stores in that area in Greenwich and Fairfield generally that have, each restaurant has its own parking areas. We don't want to turn into that. We don't want to be like those people. But Milltown's a great example of a business side, and then for a residential, that area when you're going up towards the dam, if you're going up by the railroad tracks there, if you're driving up, they have an event venue over there. I mean, I've seen 50 cars parked in that area, and they're not even real parking spaces, but just for a
Are you talking about
wedding
the old,
venue.
are you talking about the old KFC?
No.
the Waldron, the old Waldron estate.
Next
not-
to
I think it was the
West-
Fourniers at one point, but
West-
the one
Yeah, I know where you're talking about
they have
now.
the barn in the back, and if you're heading up, there's a church across the street. The dam is there. You're driving up the hill. I mean,
But-
I drive by there all the time, and there was 50 or 70 cars there for a wedding.
But they have a special permit to
Yeah,
run.
Oh yeah, I'm just using it as an example. I'm saying
But
there shouldn't
example
be a
of-
restriction.
What
There
are you
should not
using?
be a restriction.
What are you using as an example of? I don't understand.
That particular venue, saying that they put at least 50 cars there, and it's their own property, so they should be able to do what if they want to have an event and they have a permit, then we shouldn't be telling them how many cars they can put there. They figured it out on their own. They had 50 cars in there.
Okay,
fine.
so go back to 193, that the bed and breakfast there that wants to extend to the barn. Wasn't there a lot of emphasis from you guys on, even though he had to pull it out, wasn't there a lot of emphasis on where's the parking, how many parking
Cindy,
places?
that's the place I'm talking about.
No,
barn
this is
and-
No,
no.
it's a different place.
I'm talking about 193 across the street from Burn Styles. There's a country inn there now,
Yeah.
and they wanted to go into the barn. There was a lot of emphasis during your discussions as to it really was pulled out because there was no determined parking area. So I'm not getting what you're saying. I have no problem with not designated parking area for restaurants, for business. I don't have a real issue with that. I personally think that Milltown is one of the worst places to start to park now, but that's my opinion. I'm concerned with what Mike was concerned about, because you just approved that special permit for Main Street for the multi-housing there, but you don't have enough parking there. And people have to park across the street. That just didn't make any sense to me. but I'm only staff. You guys made this decision. So you have nothing that's required for multi-housing units. So that's my opinion. That's it,
Yeah,
guys.
so on-street parking is legal virtually everywhere in town. I think there's only a couple of limited areas where on-street parking is not legal. I do remember the discussion over the parking there at the place Neil will be building.
Right.
They do have the capacity for overflow parking into non-metered public parking spaces on the back end of the library, or people who normally park on street, if that is something that becomes necessary, can move their cars there during snow events. You know, or, and this is another thing, so a reason
You're missing my point here.
that places often will put this this weird 1.5 spaces per unit requirement in is because, not unreasonably, they will say, well, you know, what if it's a couple living and they have 2 cars? So if you are looking at an apartment and you have more cars than there are spaces for, you pass on that apartment and you look at another one in another community based
you're
on your
missing-
needs.
I
You're
can
missing my
give
whole-
you,
You're missing my point. The point is, if you've got 6 units in a building, you should have 12 parking spaces, because the reality of today's society is there's 2 cars per family. And the fact that you're asking people to go across the street, they got to walk across the street, they got to, that, to me, that was like the most ridiculous thing. But again,
well, can I?
my feeling is there's two parking places. I'm sorry, Jane, 2
Oh, no,
parking
that's okay.
places in multi-housing.
No,
for-
I can give you an example. The mobile home park in Quinnebog, they are allowed to have 2 vehicles. Of course, they have their own, you know, piece of land that they, you know, put it on, but they are only allowed 2 vehicles. I know somebody that has 3 vehicles. He found someplace else to park the car. It was no problem. And I think Brian, you said it, maybe Ryan said it, the contractors are going to know what is needed and what is not needed. If we start putting in all of the restrictions, well, you have to have this, you have to have that, it's not my idea of what we're supposed to be doing. And Cindy, I remember the conversation with the man that was doing, you know, the B&B or whatever up on the hill.
Right.
And I do remember that conversation. For my thoughts on that, we were concerned because we know the building, there's not enough parking. He had to figure that out. We don't need to do this. That's up to the contractor, the owner of the property, whatever. So there are other alternatives, but I don't feel that we need to restrict anything on that level.
Agreed.
Okay, so I'm hearing that the consensus is we are not going to set designated minimum or maximum parking spaces, that we're going to
Correct.
allow the applicant to make a proposal as to what he or she thinks that they need.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Levels of
And to
reasonableness,
Brian's
right?
point,
Levels
right,
of
and to
reason-
Brian's point, particularly on multifamily housing, I think, which is the one that's most controversial here. If the commission strongly feels that not enough parking has been included, you have the ability to set reasonable conditions based on the regulations.
Exactly.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Yes.
Oh, so then I can recommend when I'm doing an application. Make some more parking places here. Okay, I got
Well,
it, guys.
no, I think it only comes up when it comes to the commission, like that bed and breakfast. That property does not have the best area for parking, but he had already figured something out. We don't need to literally nitpick everything, because they're building, they know what they need, the contractor is going to know what they need, and they're going to figure it out. We don't have to regulate it.
Jane, this is like the biggest night ever. We've agreed with each other 2 or 3 times.
Is there a full moon tonight, Tara? I don't know. Something's going on.
You're breaking up. You're breaking up. Only kidding. Cindy, all
Can we
kidding
just
aside,
backtrack just a little bit on this?
Yep.
The Mason House has plenty of parking inside. Do you know how many phone calls I got because people were parking on the street?
Oh, I
End of
remember
story.
that, Cindy.
Yeah,
You,
okay.
yeah, you
End of
brought that
story.
up.
I hear you on that, Cindy, but you and I both know that there's a different dynamic at work there,
Yeah.
which is an adversarial relationship. So I don't think we can hold them as an example.
Yeah,
Hey,
there's a
Tara?
little bit of adversarial actions.
Go ahead,
Sure.
Santos. Oh, Santos, because he's got his hand up, and then you, JBL.
All right.
I just wanted to say to Cindy, your opinion is very valuable to the commission. If you want to suggest in your memos parking or numbers of parking or comments on parking, we encourage you to do that.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
correct.
Yes.
I agree with Brian.
Thank you. Okay.
Kira,
JBL, did you have something else?
Yes, just to get back to the what was it, the one on 193. One thing was left out about the parking and everything is he had to go to NDDH to see where he could put the septic system, and then that would have taken away a lot of his parking. Okay, and that's when we made those concession or suggestions, not concession, suggesting that he think about using those outdoor trailer, porta john trailers or whatever. He could have increased his parking. Okay, but otherwise he'd have to put it in, and then like Russ Robbins said, you can asphalt it and everything, but then when you have a problem down the road, you got to dig it all up. So there were those little things that kind of like changed his mind because of what was making him think what he's really got to do. We were just trying to help him, but it was his parking, but it was where he had to put the parking, and the septic system would have been the problem. But that again, it's up to him to do that, not us.
Okay, I see
Cindy?
Jane's hand up, and then I know Alvin had a comment. So Jane, then Alvin.
It is also permit by permit. And if we ask the questions and they can give us the answers to how the parking's going to be, everything else, it goes by each individual permit that comes in. If we do carte blanche with restrictions, I am dead set against that. They have to figure it out. They're doing the building, let them figure it out. We shouldn't have to make sure that everybody fits into that little box and have everybody do the same thing. That's a no-go for me.
Thank you, Jane. Alvin, go ahead.
well, hopefully the last comment on parking spaces. It's never talked about. One word, turnaround. That's the bitch with parking spaces.
Well,
They
they
make-
also have to figure that out too, Alvin, on their own.
I
We
know.
don't have to-
I'm not
yeah.
saying I'm not saying we should put regulations in, but it's just one of those terms that we just don't think about. Turnaround, miserable.
And
That's up to the
to
engineer.
the earlier point, I think that that we've made both about number and other things. Again, most of these uses that would require X number of parking spaces are either site plan review by commission or special permits. On either of those kinds of applications, you guys have the ability and have very thoughtfully introduced things like that, snow turnouts. Is there enough room for you to do all the things you need? Can you, what was the one on Neil's thing?
The dumpster.
Poplawski wanted the dumpster moved to make it more efficient. And that happened. So you guys do get to discuss on a case-by-case basis, again, to Jane's point, the specifics of any given application. If something looks hinky, you guys call it out and say, can you adjust this? That's totally within your authority without locking yourself into a one-size-fits-all. Go ahead, B.
I don't want to belabor this conversation because I think we're already on the same page, but I just want to bring up that the fire marshal also will evaluate access around a structure, and sometimes parking inhibits that access. So we would obviously review that during any special permit application.
Good
Good
point,
call.
Brian.
Okay, so just the last thing on parking, and these are both simple, but since we're in a review process, I just want to call them out. These were Cindy's suggestions. They are just language adjustments, which I think are fine. Under B, dimensions and number of parking spaces, 1, dimensions. Any automobile parking spaces provided shall be no less than 9 feet in width by 18 feet in length. So I just had 9 feet by 18 feet in dimension, so that's fine. And then under D, points of entrance and exits, D8, entrances and exits for residential driveways are governed by the Town of Thompson Code of Ordinances, Chapter 223, Roads, Driveways, and Sidewalks, Article 4, Driveways. Cindy had suggested specifically adding that line, the Town of Thompson Code of Ordinances. Totally fine. Okay, now moving on to a couple of things about signs. So that would be Chapter 275 or Section 275, 15.6. Yeah, go ahead, Jane.
I have to leave, guys.
Okay.
I hate to do it. We're getting someplace, but I've got to go. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thanks,
Good night,
Jane.
Jane.
Good night.
Good night, Jay.
Night, Jane.
And we are at 8:21, and I just want to say that these two things on signs, both Cindy's general comment and then the joint tenant signs, that's where we're going to wrap it for tonight. Because after that, it's those lighting standards for dark skies. That's a longer section. We're going to need more time on that. So these are going to be the last two topics for tonight. So Cindy has the first general comment, which is that she'd like to discuss possibly restoring the prohibition of off-site signs, which we removed in the 2020 update. So take it away, Cindy. Let them know your rationale.
Well, I have not had any complaints about off-site signs, but I don't know, as you people are driving around town, I see more and more of it. And, you know, it was just a standard regulation. And I do know, as wonderful as the Superior storage is, when he first opened, he put signs all around town off-site. There's still a couple more off-site. One is very huge. So there's nothing I can do about it. Have not had complaints. I think somebody commented to me about the storage, Superior storage off-site sign recently. And my answer was I just couldn't do anything about it. So it's something to consider. Like I said, I have not had complaints, but there's a lot of the poster sign, you know, the little signs on sides of the roads advertising, you know, everybody, businesses, and they're usually just, you know, small businesses looking for work. So it's up to you guys. Just thought I'd mention it.
Yeah, and just to follow up on that, because Cindy and I have talked about this in the office. I don't have strong feelings on it, but I have two observations about this. One is we have specifically prohibited new billboards, kind of mostly really for aesthetic reasons, but we specifically said no new billboards, right? And you know, we have no lighted signs. We have standards for signs on buildings. There are very few physical advertising opportunities for small businesses. So that's my one comment, and that this is one. I said two comments. I actually have three. My second comment is, as Cindy herself says, she hasn't really had complaints. And although I appreciate that she is thinking about what could be problematic, if it hasn't proven to be problematic, I'm not sure that we need to go out of our way to find a solution for a problem that hasn't presented itself. But then the third thing, and I think that this is actually the most significant of all of these, is we have taken the position, I mean, we really, the commission, but in these discussions, we've generally taken a position on some things that if it's not a permanent fixed object, that the commission really doesn't need to be touching it. you know, if it's something that is not attached to the ground in perpetuity, where you really need to be concerned that it's going to be there forever, obstruct a sight line, or this or that, the commission's kind of said, you know, that's not really a land use. It's just incidental to normal life.
I agree with that.
And we have had this very conversation, actually, Cindy and I, with somebody up on Thompson Hill. They wanted to put, you know, some signs out for like a yard sale or an event or something. And it was just something you stake into the ground and then pull up. And we told them at that time, it's not a permanent structure. We don't care. So I think that would be consistent. But I don't have strong feelings about it. So if the commission would like to go in a different direction, like Cindy, you know, whatever you want, I can write something up for you.
Tara,
Yes, sir.
on these signs you see over the road, those are, like you said, there's some on Buckley Hill Road that, you know, you got a guy does car washing, detailing, and I think I forgot what the third one is. That those signs are actually on town property. That's more, to me, more of a town, would be a town nuisance. Let the town garage people who drive by pick it up. If it affects the sideline or whatever, you know, it becomes a hazard. But if somebody is going to have a yard sale and everything, aren't they supposed to go down to the town hall and get a permit for to put to have a yard sale or something? Then they can put a sign up, yard sale such and such a day. Or if they put it on a telephone pole or something, you know, they're putting it on property that's not really belongs to us. It belongs to the phone company or the electric company. You know, that's, to me, is their responsibility. That's how I see it.
I know in Putnam, you had to get a permit to do 2-yard sales a year. That was their ordinance. I have no idea about Thompson, so we'd have to look at the ordinances.
Then I thought there was. I could be wrong. If I am, just say so. But I always remembered back in the day, people that wanted to have yard sales, barn sales, or whatever. Because when you have a barn sale, you know you're going to get sometimes 5, 10, 15, 20 cars at once, and they're parking out in the street, you know, on both sides, and you're lucky if you can get a Volkswagen through. So, and they're supposed to get permits. I think they used to get permits, you know. Now, if it has gone away, it's something we need to look at. But that's not our response. I don't think that's our response.
Not the permit, not something like that.
No, about the signs, them putting their own little sign up. I really don't think it's our responsibility. That's the
well, I think it is a responsibility of the zoning department to regulate signs. Yes, it is your responsibility.
Well, it's within your authority to choose to do so, for sure,
Right,
and you would do so by adding it to your regulations.
Right.
But my main issue on it is that if we have been saying to people that we view the Planning and Zoning Commission's area of authority to be the permanent alteration or use of land, then a sign on a stake that you can pull up, take out, move is not that. Go ahead, B.
I agree. I'll just keep it more plain. I don't think we have a temporary signage issue in town. So
Yes.
I think we're making a bigger deal out of this than we really need to. My opinion.
That's exactly right, Brian. And the only point, one of the points that I heard was public land versus private. One of the big superior storage signs in their defense is on private land. It's at someone's house.
Yeah, but that's offsite. That's offsite signs, offsite business signs. And so that's fine because it is a one-time occurrence. But you think about it, what if every business did that?
Yeah, that's what I meant, but it's not widespread, Cindy.
Right,
and
exactly.
I don't think we need to deal with it. I mean, the Superior Storage put a sign at the bottom of Triple Raven, right next to the Triple Raven sign. I mean, clearly they walked over there and said, "Hey, can I put a sign right here? It's private property," you know. So, but
no, I hear you.
Yeah, I wanted to be fair to Cindy because she raised it, and I wanted you guys to be able to discuss it. what I'm hearing is that we do not think that there is a sufficient issue to add new language. Is that correct?
At this
Correct.
time, yeah.
Until, until it does become an issue. But then we'll deal with it then.
For example, this weekend, there's an event in Thompson Common and someone put up a bunch of signs that are on the VIS, whatever they call themselves, the village
It's
reservation.
not an issue. That's exactly what
It's
Sarah
for,
said before.
for an event, yeah, and that's fine, right? It
Yeah.
just spreads the news about an event, the event happens and the signs will be gone. I mean, it's not really bothering anybody. It's more
Yeah.
useful.
Yeah, and that's not signs that I was referring to with my suggestion. It's not those type of signs I was referring to.
Yeah, you're right. You were talking about the large business sign.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's-
Okay, moving on, and I think this is one that we have discussed with an applicant before, so and this will be the last topic for the night. You guys remember when Frank Jakes was coming in to talk about his potential commercial property on Riverside Drive behind Sonny's Market. He noticed that there was no regulatory language that allowed for the kind of front of property signs, right? If you've got multiple tenants, right? We did not have any such language. So I did do some research and this was what I came up with. I think it's pretty simple. But you guys let me know if you think it needs any adjustment. So under chapter 275, section 5.6 signs, we would have a new subsection, letter I, joint tenant signs. 1, joint tenant signs are permitted in the business development district, downtown Mill Rehabilitation District, and Thompson Corridor Development District. 2, the level of review for a joint tenant sign shall be zoning permit simple. And just as a reminder, that means that Cindy can sign off on it without it ever coming to you guys. 3, 1 joint tenant sign may be installed at each entry point to the shared complex from a public road. And 4, signs for the individual tenants on the joint tenant sign shall otherwise conform to the regulations articulated in chapter 275, section 15.6 signs. And then in addition to that, we would have to add a new definition for what a joint tenant sign is, which I have suggested. A joint tenant sign is a sign which displays the various tenants of a business complex, office park, shopping center, or similar shared parcel. I think that's pretty simple and clear, but you guys let me know if you think anything is missing or needs adjustment.
Office park, shopping center, or similar shared parcel. Well, that's pretty descriptive.
Do you have the 275, 15, 16, 6 signs, like what it looks like articulated? Is that somewhere?
Well, yeah, it's in the online code. Joe, do you still have it open?
Oh, I'll look it up. I'm sorry. All right.
Yeah, no, I've got it open. And I'm actually right there because it's right after parking. Is there something specific you were looking for, Brian?
I just wanted a visual.
Gotcha.
Well, if you want the visual, I can go to the section and I can just share a different section.
Yeah, please.
All right, hang on. I will find it.
Yeah, I didn't mean to take over the conversation here. I'm fine with the verbiage that was read there. Just for the record, sorry. Sorry
No,
to
it's
make you
fine.
change your screen.
I mean, it's going to be the last topic of the night, so it's not like we have to cram anything in. What is that? 15.6. Oops. 15.6 signs.
I'm over here pointing at it with my cursor as if that's helpful on your computer.
Really nice job, Joe. Night's almost over, bud. We're almost there.
All right, so what are you looking for, B? Like dimensional requirements or?
Yeah. Is there limitations? Like,
No new sign, so I think the only thing we really have for specific limitations is no new sign shall be erected that is larger in dimension than 32 square
32
feet
square
in
feet.
size. So any of the individual signs that would be there would be 32 square feet in size or smaller. Obviously the larger sign, the joint tenant sign itself would be larger than that, but the
is
individual
there a
signs
height
would be.
limitation? Like, but not, I mean, you could have 32 square feet and it'd be 50 feet in the air. Not to get silly, but
That is an excellent point, and I do not believe that we have such a thing.
Didn't we discuss it the night that Jakes was there about what he wanted to do and how many people is? And I think we came up with, he couldn't exceed the sign. What's the sign height? The one down by where the gentleman's putting in the car wash and stuff, that's like 20 feet high, 25 tops.
I do not know the answer to that question.
I guess my question is, do we want to put a limitation? What does the group say to that of height restriction?
Well, it depends on well, Brian, on some of these areas like that, like down in, those, what do you call it? Complexes that have 10 or 12 buildings in there, and 12 different vendors in there and everything. On an average, the sign is no more than 20 to 25, depending on the amount of what they're looking for and width and everything for each individual. So you have to take that into it.
Yeah.
So it could be ended up being no more than 10, but it has to be, you still have to have the sign back far enough from the road for, sight line. But I've seen them where they were roughly up to 10 feet wide and 20 feet high, 25 feet high top.
I mean, we're doing 32 square feet. I guess.
No, you take it from there. So if you figure on an average, he's got to put six people, six commercial buildings up there or whatever it is. Take it from there, and that'll give you pretty much an idea of what the sign should be in length and height, depending on what he figures that each individual wants for a sign size, too. You know what I mean? But you just look at it that way. I think that's the best way to visualize it.
Well, we do have a height limit for structures of 3 stories, which we left non-dimensional because, we don't want somebody to have to go out there and say, oh, you're 42 feet and the limit's 40 feet, right? Just 3 stories, right?
Yeah, but
it is slightly different for the signs. The signs themselves, they don't have stories. So what's that upper limit?
Well, the best. All right, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I'm wondering if I'm trying to, because I'm sure we would have discussed this when we did this.
What, height limits for signs?
Yeah.
I don't think we did discuss it, Joe, because we weren't thinking about this kind of shared complex signage, which is why it's not in the regulations in the first place.
I thought we
talked
did
about
because
limits for, like you couldn't have it on the roof or the eaves or the whatever, right? And that's all in there, but I mean, obviously you've got it in front of you. We did not include a limit for height, and I don't think we did discuss it.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember if we did or not, but I'd be surprised if it didn't come up at least at Frank's place here, because he's talking about putting the sign literally next to a residence. So anyway, I feel I'll say this. I'm fine with the language. I'm fine with the 32 square feet. I think we can evaluate height when an application gets submitted. And put a limitation on it if it gets ridiculous. I'll end it there.
Well, and that's what I'm wondering if, sorry, John, because it's a ZEO issued permit, right? And the ZEO can always bump it up if there's a concern, right? And I'm wondering if that was something that we talked about, that might be a reason why we didn't include it. That if the ZEO was uncomfortable with the height of the sign, they may
Can I mention something about? the
Actually,
height?
I would say if it's gonna be a ZEO issued permit, right, because it's not a discursive process the way a site review by commission is. And Cindy, you can tell me if I'm wrong, I would assume that you would be more comfortable to have a limit that you can refer to.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah, that's definitely, because they're gonna ask, how
Can I
big can I
mention-
go?
Well,
Can
it goes
can I
back to what
mention
I said.
Go ahead, Alvin, I can see you're trying to talk.
Yeah, on heights. You have wind load and exposure. You get a 4x8 sheet, you got a wind load, serious
Yeah.
wind at certain heights and exposure. And that would be shot down by the building department anyway, even
Yeah.
if Sydney approved the height.
Right, that's true.
Oh, that's actually a good point though, Alvin. And I'm gonna lean on your experience as the former building official. For a sign like this, does that get a building permit as well? Because if it does, perhaps this standard is already
Absolutely.
articulated.
That's a building permit, it's over 7 feet in height.
Yeah, if
Structure
anything,
over 7 feet in height.
So what we should do,
Right.
Cindy, is ask John
mhm,
Knoll what the regulation is, what the building standard is for that.
okay,
And
okay,
then just repeat it in there for your purposes as ZEO.
okay, sounds
Yeah,
good.
okay.
Good idea.
Well, that should be in the, yeah, or, Alvin, when you were in a building inspector, that's in the state statutes, isn't it? About
Absolutely.
height, width.
Over 7 feet, over 7 feet, if you get something that large, 32 square feet, I would require engineering.
Well, I was
And
just
that's
gonna.
gonna cost more than the sign.
Right, but it also has, yeah, it has to meet structural, it has to meet the structural design to take the wind load effect and everything else. Plus, if they put the lights on, the thing, what's it gonna be constructed out of? Steel, wood or whatever, that makes a difference too.
It's all relative.
I'm just, and it has to be what, X amount of feet from the edge of the road for sight line, all that stuff has to be included.
Yep.
It's almost like having it in, you have to have it engineered, so
And
to
then you
speak.
have a fall rate.
All right,
Excuse
we have a plan of action here, which is I'm gonna follow up with the building office to find out what the standards are articulated in the building code for structures like that. And then the goal here is to make it simple for Cindy to sign off on a permit for a joint tenant sign, right? So that's what will make it simple for her. Go ahead, B.
I'm
And
just
it's
gonna say,
the building department of design will look at the design itself and determine whether or not it needs engineering, or if Cindy it okays it, and it's just a wood structure, only, say 6 feet off the ground, there's no issue. As long as it doesn't violate zoning setbacks, because it is a structure.
my
Well-
recommendation just would be, the sign has to be 18 inches off the ground because of snow, but not, a maximum of 7 feet to keep it under the regulation for a fence.
Just found these candies from Japan, but I'm not sure whether they're green tea or matcha based. Let's use the Google app to find out what it is. I just have the lens icon.
I don't know who's that in the background.
I did, that was my fault.
Okay, so Santos, 18 feet, 18 inches off the ground for snow clearance, and what else did you say?
Maximum height of 7, because if the sign's 6 by 6, 36 square feet, or, obviously bigger than the 32. That's 6 plus a, foot and a half. And put you at 7.5, so they'd have to. It would be 5, you'd make it 5 feet high, 6.5 feet, 5.5 feet tall. The sign would be, because it's 18 inches off the ground, that makes it 7 feet, and then the sign would be approximately 6 feet wide. That would give you the 32 square feet roughly. So that's my recommendation. But you can go and ask the building department too. This way they just keep it out of the, we're talking about designing signs from engineering.
Exactly.
Like, who the hell's gonna do that?
Well, when a sign company actually like graphics, they actually come up with dimensional plans. I mean, their plans are pretty good.
Those are the ones that make
Yeah,
them.
but my
Yeah.
point is, they're not doing a wind load study. They're
Right.
they're putting 4 foot
That's true.
footings in the ground and calling it a day. You know,
Yeah.
no one is designing wind loads on a sign that's 7 feet tall.
Well, to
Mm.
Cindy's point, I think she gets to, and this actually is very similar to the conversation on parking minimums in some ways. You know, there are sign companies that have standards that they use. To what extent are we substituting our expertise for theirs? Maybe I can just call Graphics Unlimited and ask them, you know, what they see for standard sign heights.
Exactly.
Although that varies pretty widely too. I mean, the height of a joint tenant sign, you know, going into a strip mall in a heavily trafficked commercial area can be really tall, but we're not talking about that, right? So what would they view as the reasonable, we just want to make this easy for Cindy to sign off on it, right?
See what graphic comes up with an average sign height for certain types of business, you know, mall, shopping mall, or something like that, like what Jake's wanted to do. He wanted to put in 6 units up there, or one building with six tenants or something like that, but he wanted the sign to be sufficient to advertise those 6 units. Now, see, that's what we were discussing that night with him, because we couldn't put our finger on it ourselves. So I think now that the issue has been brought up to us and we're talking about it, let's look into it. Like Alvin says, if he wants to put a sign that could be 20 feet high with the people he wanted, you're right. It's going to need a building permit. It's going to need a structural design because of wind load. I agree with him. I know what it takes with pieces of equipment. You know, when you put it up in the air, you got a wind load. This all comes into play. You ever see a sign get blown over by a wind? You don't want to see it, especially a nice tall one. But I'm just saying, this is something now we need to look at and see what is the best avenue. We're not trying to dictate, but we need to cover the base. If we come up with an average and Cynthia can sign off for it, all well and good. But if it has to come to the commission for a site plan review, then that's her recommendation and we go from there. And I think it's simple. Slap me
Okay,
up.
so that was the last topic. I've got a little more research to do just to tighten this piece up, but I think we've had a good discussion on it. You guys okay with the rest of this language? I guess we never really did establish that. The definition and the 4 standards.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Which ones are those, Cynthia?
Carol.
Tara, I mean Cynthia. Tara, I'm sorry, apologize.
That's okay. The ones on your screen right now, John. Joint tenant signs are permitted in the BDD, DMRD, TCDD. Level of review is zoning permit simple. 1 joint tenant sign may be installed at each entry point to the shared complex from a public road. And then the individual tenant signs would conform to the requirements of other individual signs as articulated, and we'll add something for height.
Yeah, that acceptable.
Sounds good to me. All right, so good work, everybody. There is one more topic left in the draft as it exists, which is this lighting standards for development, non-residential and agricultural. As you will recall, this was something that I proposed based on some suggested regulatory language to preserve dark skies, which you may, discuss, take it or leave it. It's sort of extensive. It did seem to me that it was consistent with some of the values that have been expressed within the community. The whole conservation, rural, we're part of the last Green Valley, but it is all brand new, so that it'll need a session on its own. And then we'll be through the draft one time through, and we can go back to the top and start, going through where we know we needed to have more discussion. Sound good?
Tara,
Yes, Cindy.
did I miss any of these meetings? Because we never discussed reviewing, I don't remember discussion of reviewing the coverage for changing the footprint for CRD from 4,500 up. Did we
We
have
did.
that?
We most
Nope.
definitely discussed it, and you were most definitely there. What we did was we put a pin in it to revisit. You remember I sent out all that
Yeah.
information about average sizes and,
I prepped.
taxation, and you were definitely in that meeting.
Okay, so what conclusion did we come to?
We didn't come to any
We're gonna
conclusions.
revisit.
We decided to
Okay.
leave it and then come back
Okay.
to it because we knew we needed more information.
Okay, all right, that's all I want to know. I have to be very honest. This has not have been my top priority, reviewing all this information when it comes back through. So, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah, because you're right, Tara, that was one we felt that was gonna be a lengthy discussion and everything for maybe, you had two of them, we got two items on hold for that. That was one of them. I forgot what the other one is.
Yeah, we talked about that. We talked in circles about that one thing for over an hour. So
Yes.
we put a pause on it and agreed to come back to it after, I found some more information for you, some of which I have definitely already sent to you. So.
Oh, you have? Okay, so I missed that too. Okay, thanks. All right.
Oh, boy.
Okay, if that is that, then I will entertain a motion.
You got it.
Got
Mr.
it.
Dickey moves to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Santos seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? This meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everyone. This was
Thank you. Good
a
night.
effective
Good
one.
work tonight,
Really
guys.
appreciate it.
Thank you.